Kelsey. Thank you all for coming out to this chamber event today and being part of this. So the format is we will hear from each candidate for up to 15 minutes, and then we will have a short Q&A session after that. And so just going in alphabetical order, our first candidate will be Greg Nohe.
Good afternoon. Thanks everybody for coming. I want to thank the Chamber for holding this event and allowing Mark and I to talk. I'll tell you a little bit about myself to begin with, and then I'll tell you about my experiences and what I want to do as a sheriff of Washington County. I started off 1982. I'm a military veteran. Any military veterans in here? There's got one. Thanks, Brad, for your service. Appreciate it. It's guys like you that make this country what it is today. Thank you. Went to Panama for 2 years as a military police officer. While I was there, I was fortunate enough to go to basic airborne school. And from Panama, I left and went to Fort Bragg, North Carolina as an MP, jumping out of airplanes, one of only 2 MP units in the Army that were airborne qualified. I did that. I was also a jump master as well, conducting airborne operations for the unit. My unit at the time that I was there was designated as the best military police company in the entire United States Army. Very, very proud of that. That's a standard of excellence that we had then that I have today. 1987, I joined the Marietta Police Department as a uniform patrol officer. Worked uniform patrol for about 7 years, working all 3 shifts, answering calls for service, responding to crimes in progress, all that stuff. 1994, I became a detective with Marietta Police Department. I was a detective for many, many years, working high-profile crimes in the city of Marietta. Homicides, rapes, serious assaults, felonious assaults, felonies. That was my job. And I did it very well, very successful in doing that. 2004, we started a major crimes task force, which I was an original member as a representative of Marietta Police Department, working crimes, drug crimes in Washington County and adjacent counties. We were very, very successful in doing that. We started that due to the opioid epidemic that was going on in the late 1990s and early 2000s. It was a necessity that we needed to do, that I was doing as a member of the Marietta Police Department. The Sheriff's Office was also doing at the time, so we decided to join together and make our efforts more productive. One thing I've learned in 40 years of law enforcement, it requires a team. It's teamwork that makes law enforcement a success. That's what I've done in my career. Make teams, be a part of teams, facilitate that. After working major crimes for several years, I got promoted to sergeant to Marietta Police Department. Worked uniform patrols as a supervisor, mainly working night shift. Had 6 guys under me. Worked that for several years. I then got promoted again and was the captain of police for Marietta Police Department. I retired in 2016, took an opportunity to be the jail administrator for the Washington County Sheriff's Office. Did that for over 5 years. First time in the history of the Washington County Jail that became 100% compliant with the high minimum jail standards. First time, due to my leadership and the excellent team that I had working for me and with me. very first time. That's the kind of leadership that I bring. Left the sheriff's office in August of 2021 as a major. What's the sheriff's office about? What is the position of sheriff about? It's a position of leadership. That position in and of itself requires that person to be a leader, to lead law enforcement in this county. It's essential. It's imperative that that person has the ability to pull people together to work as a team, to have a cohesive unit, to work together towards a common goal. The sheriff of Washington County and any county in Ohio has 3 statutory responsibilities: provide law enforcement services to the unincorporated parts of Washington County. Second thing is, you got to operate a jail. Third thing is, provide civil process to Washington County Common Pleas Court. That's the 3 statutory responsibilities of the sheriff. That requires that person to be a leader. I've been endorsed by the Teamsters, the union that represents the Washington County Sheriff's Office employees. I've been endorsed by the Marietta Fraternal Order of Police. That's Marietta police officers. Very, very important that the leader have the support of the people that he's going to lead. I encourage you, go to Facebook, go to my website. You'll see the testimonials from the people that work at the sheriff's office, the boots on the ground people, the people that respond to your homes when you're in need, the people that answer those calls for crimes in progress, the people that investigate serious felonies in this county. 90% of the sheriff's office employees, the Teamsters union members, support me. That is a testament to what I bring to the sheriff's office, and what I will be as the sheriff of this county. That's a statement. That's not a conflict. That's a statement of who should be the next sheriff of this county. In addition, Marietta police officers that work support me as well. That is a statement to the public of who the leader of the Washington County Sheriff's Office should be. I have demonstrated over the course of 40 years as an MP officer, MP non-commissioned officer in the United States Army, as a paratrooper, that I have that ability to do that. I did that at the Marietta Police Department. Worked every rank, every position you could work, with the exception of Chief of Police. I've done everything within law enforcement, from parking control to investigate serious homicides. I've done all that. I've started programs at both agencies that facilitate teamwork and cooperation. I was instrumental in establishing minimum manpower at Marietta Police Department, not only to protect the officers, but to protect the residents as well, so we have enough officers out there to do our job, to keep them safe and to keep us safe. mentoring. I've mentored throughout my whole career of young officers to encourage them, to make them better. Leadership's not about me. It's about making everybody else around you better. That's what leadership is. That's what I bring to the table. One thing I'm proud of, a few years back I started Operation Blue Sky. It's done during Police Week, where we recognize the sacrifices that law enforcement officers make to our citizenry every day. I thought it was important to do that, to recognize their service and sacrifice to our communities. That's leadership. Started the CEO school. I didn't start it. I facilitated it at Washington State Community College, so we wouldn't have to send our COs to Muskingum County. I started that. What is leadership? What is it? It's influence people by providing them purpose, direction, and motivation while operating to accomplish the mission and make the organization better. That is what leadership is. It's plain. It's simple. It's not a difficult task. You just have to know how to do it. I've done it. That's why the overwhelming majority of the law enforcement officers in this county support me to be the sheriff, because they know the leadership that I bring to the table. They're aware of that. It's imperative to the success of law enforcement that you have that teamwork approach. It's imperative. Two fundamental responsibilities of a leader: accomplish the mission, take care of the people that's doing it for you. That's it. Do what we get paid to do, take care of the people that's doing it. It's not difficult. The message is the deputies that are working, the city police officers that are working, support me. It's imperative to this county that we have more uniformed officers working. That's a goal. That's non-negotiable. That's going to happen. It's also imperative that we engage with the community. That's why I want to start community resource officers, specific officers assigned to those areas, so we can employ those strategies to get that information. That's what it takes. As the sheriff, I will conduct a complete audit of Sheriff's Office operations. Complete audit, top to bottom, to see where we're spending our money, to see where we can use that money more effective, to see where we can put our resources that are more effective. I can't sit up here and tell you I'm going to hire 5 police officers. I want to. That's the goal. Absolutely the goal. Because that's what the citizens of this county want. They want to see more uniformed officers working, engaging. I'm pretty confident that once you conduct that audit to see where the money's spent, that those 5 officers will be a reality. That's what the citizens of this county want. Effective police service, the responsibility of the sheriff. In closing, I've not made a promise to anybody or anyone or anything in this election. Nothing. Nobody, not even had a conversation. But I'll promise you this. If I'm elected sheriff of this county, the people in this room will not be disappointed. The deputies, the law enforcement officers that work this county every day will not be disappointed if I'm the leader of law enforcement in Washington County. Thank you. Sit down. Oh, sorry. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Greg. All right, our next candidate is Mr. Mark Warden.
Okay, you got 15 minutes. Okay. I'll give you a sign for 2.
Okay. Thank you. I'd like to thank the Chamber and all those who've taken time out of their day to attend this very important meeting. Many of you in here look very familiar to me. Some of you don't. My name is Mark Warden. Next month will mark 37 years of my career at the Washington County Sheriff's Office. I started the Washington County Sheriff's Office at the entry level as a dispatcher correction officer. I worked that for 5 years when it was at the old jail at the courthouse. I believe that was the foundation of what prepared me for what was to become. So I've never forgotten where I've come from. In 1992, I became a deputy sheriff and received my certificate through Ohio Police Officers Training Academy through Marietta College. And I patrolled 640 square miles out here in Washington County. Sometimes I did it by myself. Sometimes there was 2 out working. Met a lot of good people while I was out there. Locked a lot of bad guys up. I'm still friends with a lot of those individuals today. Met a lot of good contacts. 1992, I became a detective. I excelled in as a road deputy in investigations. People tend to talk to me, and I got a lot of confessions. So I was recruited in 1992 to become a detective. When I first went into the Detective Bureau, I became part of a team that was dedicated to taking very diversified, high-profile criminals off the road. My lieutenant at the time told me, and it echoes still today, is that sometimes that you got to think outside the box to get the criminal. I took that to heart, and I also applied it in my administrative years, and I'll explain that as I go. I became a sergeant, supervised that unit. We worked some of the most diversified crimes that you can think of. I've seen evil at its worst. I've sat across the table from a man right now that's on death row. Took a 7-year-old girl, he raped her, drove her a mile down the road, walked her up in a field at dark, and dropped her down a well, and then dropped a rock on her head. I've sat across the table from evilness. I've seen it at its highest level, and I've seen crime at its lowest level. And I know how to work it. In 2003, I became part of a 2-man drug unit in Washington County. We worked 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It was busy for 2 individuals. My opponent's right. Wright State University came into Washington County because of the overdose deaths. I've had the privilege to serve under 3 sheriffs. Dick Ellis, Bob Slicker, and now your current sheriff, Larry Minks. I've seen what worked, and I have seen what has not worked. But you got to give those individuals credit on trying those things outside the box. In 2004, Larry Minks started the Major Crimes Task Force. I was the day-to-day commander of that unit. And my opponent's right, we were very successful. We worked in 3 counties. It was an organized crime unit. We took high-profile individuals out. One community asked they needed help. We went over and we took 21 MDOs, which is major drug offenders, out of that community in Athens County. We did it effectively. We did it as a team. I started my career with one principle, and it's simply this: what can I do better to better serve the citizens of Washington County? I echoed that when I was a CO, a dispatcher, a deputy sheriff, a detective, a drug agent, and now I'm your chief deputy at the Washington County Sheriff's Office. I have served at the Sheriff's Office with many types of titles: sergeant, lieutenant, major, current year chief deputy. I was a crime scene investigator. I was a hostage negotiator. talk to people in very high crisis situations, guns to their chest, to their heads, and I've talked those weapons out of their hands. I was a state certified, Ohio trained academy teacher for corrections and also for law enforcement officers. I believe the career that I have built upon has prepared me today for what is to become as your next sheriff. It has prepared me. From an administrative standpoint, I go over the budget. I work with the budget daily. I work on policies. I work on procedures. And the bad part about being an administrator is sometimes you have to set the table and be the bad guy. So as your sheriff, I will be very transparent, and I will hold people accountable. But as your sheriff, I'm going to tell you right now, the problem in Washington County, what we're seeing, is the drug problem. It's no doubt. This is not a political statement. That southern border affects each and every one of you. With the drug problem that we're seeing in Washington County, it's a trickle-down effect. No ifs, no ands. It affects you. A high drug problem, you have a high theft problem. I talked to a big box store GM over in Parkersburg, West Virginia, and their first year of taking over that store, they had over $1 million shrink. It's $1 million theft within that agency. It's a serious issue. As your sheriff, how do you address that? You address it by changing protocol at the Washington County Sheriff's Office. How do you change protocol? Right now, when a call comes in the Washington County Sheriff's Office, deputy sheriff handles it. They'll take it up to a certain point, and then they'll call the detective. The detective may not get it for a day or two. I'm changing that. I will simply set up protocol at the Washington County Sheriff's Office that when felonies come in, a detective is dispatched immediately to the scene. It serves two purposes. Number one, that detective takes over the scene, and that deputy sheriff is now put back out in proactive form. And listen, this is no slam on any deputy. I will take any deputy at Washington County Sheriff's Office, and I'll put their investigative skills up against anybody adjacent to us in Southeast Ohio. But that detective will have the availability to create a case that is nothing but the best. And the reason why, because they have the time to do it. I'm also going to bring in the Washington County Sheriff's Office resources. What we're seeing right now, coming through your community, into your community, Washington County is a user community. They don't make fentanyl here in Marietta. They don't make it in Darla. They don't make it. It comes across that southern border. Methamphetamines, I was a clandestine lab certified officer to disassemble these things when I was in the task force. We don't do it no more. It's coming across freely, and it's affecting our county. I will bring resources to bear on this problem that's never been seen before. I'm going to go way outside the box on this, and I'm going to ask for each and every one of your help. I will bring resources in, such as canines. I'll have a canine working every shift. I will bring that manpower up, and I'll do it at the budgets by protecting the budget of the Washington County Sheriff's Office. I'm also going to bring into the Washington County Sheriff's Office that's never been seen in 37 years. Never been seen. I'm bringing a victim advocate on. That victim advocate will be attached to every one of our victims. I've seen firsthand what that's like when I had a victim advocate when I first started out in law enforcement, and she was attached to the prosecutor's office, but she went way above and beyond. She was out in the evenings working with us. And I seen what it did for our victims in Washington County. I will have that victim advocate attached to every victim of the Washington County Sheriff's Office. I will first seek out that funding by grants. The commissioners brought 2 grant writers onto the county, and they've done nothing but an amazing job. I will also have that victim advocate attached to every death investigation. I could have delegated this down when I was a major. I didn't. I look at every death investigation that comes into the Washington County Sheriff's Office. Number one, I want to make sure we do it right, because you only get one chance. Second, behind that little piece of paper is a victim. There's a family who is suffering because they've lost a loved one. I had for years, nobody knows it, I reached out to outside resources to attach these families to get them help. I will pass that torch on to the victim advocate. to take care of our victims, to take care of those who've lost loved ones. I will do that. I will also bring to bear on this drug problem something that's never been seen before. I, as your sheriff, will leave 205 Putnam Street. What does that mean? I'm not going to be a politician that shows up to your community and tells you I want your vote. You're going to hold my feet to the fire, just like I told Newport at a town hall. Who's responsible? You hold me responsible. And we effectively took that problem out just the other day. I, as your sheriff, will come to your communities. I will pick one a month. And I am going to come to your community with crime statistics. I will work with township trustees, mayors, whatever it takes to get the community together. Because I truly believe that this problem can be addressed by if we all work together. Right now I have 18 road deputies out, 5 on one, 2 shifts, 4 on another, on 2 other ones. I'll bring that manpower up by not affecting the budget. While I'm at these community this community engagement, I will be seeking and asking that the communities build watch programs. I can tell you right now that I have effectively worked with a community and met with them at 9:30 at night on State Route 26, midweek. If you call me, I'm available. I met with them. We built a crime watch program in that area that stands about 23 strong right now. And guess what happened to crime in that community? It went down. It went down because individuals knew that their houses were being watched by fellow citizens. As your sheriff, I will lead that effort. I will lead it. Programs that I've started at the Washington County Sheriff's Office are programs that I hold close and dear to my heart. Your kids, your children, your grandkids are safer because of what I started 12 years ago. I started the active shooter program in Washington County. It's simply the reason why is because I looked at a piece of paper that came from Warren High School and it said their safety drill was complete. Once you get to know me, you're going to find out very quickly that I look at stuff and I say, how can we do things better? We did. I changed the program. I want to let you know right now that Washington County, the kids were 8 years ahead of what the state of Ohio mandated. And right now in Washington County, I can take seniors at our high schools and teach the program. As a result of that, I knew that we were weak in our schools. So I fought and worked with schools to get your school resource officers in. Right now, we've got 5 school resource officers in Washington County. There are 2 schools in Washington County that currently don't have school resource officers, and it would be my testament as your sheriff, is that how do I think outside the box and work with the federal government, Wayne National Forest, to get a school resource officer at Frontier Local. Another program that I started was a SALT program, Seniors and Law Enforcement Together. These programs are designed as a leader to reach out to our community. We've got senior citizens that live out there that have no foundation, have no family. We do welfare checks on them. I started a program where the Washington County Sheriff's Office reserve deputies, it does not take off the criminal division. They go out and they check on these individuals. We sign them up with a packet, and we bring on the board. To give you an idea of how effective this is, a 97-year-old lady, the first one that we went to, she says, the man who mows my yard is trying to take my house. Did she ever call the Washington County Sheriff's Office? No, she never did. We went through the packet, and after I got done, I asked her again, tell me the story about about this individual. She goes, he walked me in the kitchen and raised his hand to strike me if I did not sign my house over to him. If you look 2 doors down, he took my neighbor's house. That information was vetted out by detectives and the partnership of all the agencies that I went in with on the assault program. We could not convict the individual, but if it was an honest mistake, he would have been down there making it right. What we did was he never showed back up. He never showed back up to Murray Yard. The detective was upset, and he looked at me and he says, I didn't get it. And I said, yeah, you did. You saved her house. She would have never called us. I believe to this day that house will be in his name. Programs. Leaders start these programs, and they pass the torch off to those who carry the torch. I will engage with your community like it's never been engaged before. I, as your sheriff, will come to you. I will start programs within the Washington County Sheriff's Mentor. I do that now. I do cross-training. At the Washington County Jail, I started a program where males work in the female blocks, females work in the male blocks. Why? Because I taught it. I taught correctional officers to be correctional officers. And we're stronger for it now today. Right now, you've got 7 females that are supervisors at that Washington County Jail. We've got 9 armed. Several of them are females. As I move forward, I ask for your support in the upcoming primary. I, along with my opponent, thank you for this opportunity. Thank you.
Alrighty, thank you to both of our candidates for coming today. We appreciate your time. We're going to open it up to questions. I'm going to take this off the stand. So we are going to open it up to questions. So if you have a question that you'd like to ask to the candidates, just raise your hand and I'll make my way over to you so that way we can all hear the question and I'll come back over to the candidate. If our 2 candidates could go up to the front, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. My question is for Mr. Nohe. And I took some notes here so I was accurate, so you could give a proper response. In a recent debate, in an article in the Marietta Times, you stated, quote, 90% of law enforcement supports me. You went on to say in the debate, quote, as evidenced by the people that support me, and you named the Marietta Police Department, State Highway Patrol, Valkyrie Police Department, sheriffs adjacent to this county support Greg Nohe. I sent out several public records requests, in fact, to every sheriff's office adjoining Washington County and all the police departments within the county. Not one of those public records requests indicated that any police department or any sheriff's office adjacent to this county have endorsed you as candidate. In fact, the sheriff in Athens County actually endorsed your partner or your opponent. Your comments, whether they were in error, misleading, or false, are your responsibility to ensure those accuracies. Being endorsed by 90% of deputies or FOP members carries far less weight than an endorsement by an agency itself. How are you going to correct that for the voters of Washington County?
Need 2 mics. Well, I appreciate that question, Chris. 90% of the law enforcement officers in this county support me. Who does that include? Sheriff's deputies, police officers, Valkyrie police officers support me. Meigs County Sheriff Scott Fitch endorses me. That's a sheriff. Did that answer your question?
No, sir, you didn't.
What else do you want me to answer?
You stated these departments in the county supported you.
What?
As a department, not as the individuals.
Okay, well, let's not get into semantics, okay?
Well, the Highway Patrol is very upset that you implied that they endorsed.
No, there's highway patrol
Yes, they are. I
troopers.
spoke with
I'm glad you
them. So
did.
answer the question.
I am.
What are you going to do to correct this misleading statement?
I will. Troopers in Washington County, boots on the ground troopers, support me. Troopers. That's Ohio State Highway Patrol. Deputies. Police officers that work at those various agencies support me. I think that answers the question.
No, sir, it doesn't. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Victoria. I'm from Building Bridges to Careers, and I also wrote notes down, but not super detailed. We often work with the current sheriff for career exploration opportunities for students in the county, and sometimes even ones from outside the county come to our events. I've heard from both of you talking about your career path available resources, and grant funding. My two favorite words, grant funding. How do you feel about working with local students? This is a question for both of you. Working with local students interested in law enforcement, and what would you suggest to make career exploration more accessible for law enforcement? Because you both talked about increasing the amount of law enforcement we have, but how do you feel about working with students on that? I'll try to walk faster.
Thank you for the question. I have already started programs in Washington County. Two of the programs I started out as a conversation, and it led to what we currently have today. I started a cadet program at the Washington County Sheriff's Office, and it serves multiple purposes. The cadet program, number one, your students who are second-degree associate at Washington State, they have to have 105 practicum hours. I worked with the grant writers at the Washington County Commissioner's Office, and I applied for a grant at the state of Ohio for $10,000. I was granted $7,000, and I brought 2 cadets on the Washington County Sheriff's Office. The purpose of that was simply is to engage those students. Number one, it builds them a great foundation to where they could possibly go, and they start in every division. So right now I've got 1 cadet, 2 females. She just completed the program, and her last text to me was, "I'm done. What else do you want me to do?" It's really cool stuff. I believe the future of law enforcement is programs by engaging our younger generation. We have to break what's out there right now. It's a sad state of affairs when you look across the state. I can tell you right now that the SALT program that I talked to you about, I was at Warren High School. And at Warren High School, when you talk about engaging your students, I was at Warren High School and I was talking about the program, and one of the instructors came up to me and said, "This might be a great program for our seniors." Because right now, it's hard to find volunteers. It's hard to find them. Right now, in your high schools, they have to do community service hours to get a credit to graduate. With the SALT program, I will be putting a student, a senior, at all your high schools in that extra seat. And they're going to be going out and engaging with our seniors. And it's all done through the SALT program. Already been cleared through the course of our insurance company, and it's all been cleared. So right now, Warren High School is on board. I work with all the superintendents daily. Stephanie up at Fort Fry, on board. I've already got students signed up. And I get chills on my neck thinking about it, because I truly believe, as I said here, is that when a student sits in that chair, it could literally change the trajectory of their life. And I know it will because I've seen it.
I appreciate that question. The challenge, one of the biggest challenges that law enforcement is facing across the country is hiring, recruitment, and retaining those employees. Every police department has that issue. Every sheriff's department has that issue. So what that means? Well, it means that you need to get out and try to recruit. Where do you recruit? You recruit in schools. Right now, law enforcement is getting employees from other law enforcement agencies. We're recruiting those guys to come to our agency where we work. The best recruitment tool that any agency has is the boots on the ground, the law enforcement officers at work. That's the best. Tell them to come to that organization because it's great. Our leader is great. The last 2 terms of this administration, there's been 170 people come through the sheriff's office. Some for different reasons. But it can never be because the leadership is poor. Never. So where do we go? We go into schools. I, as a leader, as a supervisor, when I was at the jail, not talking about the Marietta police at this moment, at the jail, not all, most of the people that work for me in the lieutenant's position and above are now certified officers working the street. They were corrections officers when I got there. I mentored them to be certified peace officers. I was imperative to work with Washington State to get that corrections officer school up there. I also am a law enforcement instructor that is taught in basic police classes and to police officers. So what we need to do now is go into the schools, go into the high schools with our school resource officers, the best recruitment that we have, and recruit those young officers. Recruit those people that want to be in law enforcement and develop a program. Cadet program's good. You can also have a police explorer program. That's effective as well. It takes a team effort to do that.
Yeah, this question is for both candidates. Talking about Central 911, our the Commissioner's Office has been pretty outspoken about the Central 911 process here in the county, and when it comes to directives from the state within the state operating budget, all things are pointing toward that. I'd like to get both your thoughts on the process.
Thank you, Commissioner. That's a great question. I believe Central 911, we should have it in Washington County. It's imperative to the safety and security of our residents that we be able to responsibly respond to and answer 911 calls. It's imperative. The cooperation that we have in that 911 does not at this point include Marietta and or Belpre. They're not involved. So it's really not going to be Central 911. I don't know why that is. I've been told things. It's a funding issue. I don't know. But in order for it to be effective, it needs to include everybody. Right now, I don't know what has been brought to the table. I can't speak to that, other than the fact that they're not participating. I don't know why that is. I'm going to try to fix that as the sheriff, to get them to come on board. I don't know if I'll be successful, but I'm going to try. Because we're only as effective as our weakest link, and we have to have Central 911 in Washington County.
I've been on got me? Okay. Sorry about that. I've been on the Sheriff's Office since the onset of 911, since its original conception. Currently, right now in Washington County, you have 3 PSAPs, which are public service answering points. One is at the Washington County Sheriff's Office, one's at Marietta Police Department, one's at Belpre Police Department. Right now, the way the system's set up in Washington County, that if you, no matter where you're at, what jurisdiction you're in, if you call from a cell phone line, you automatically go to the Washington County Sheriff's Office. So if you have a loved one coming off I-77 and you're having a heart attack and you pull into the city of Marietta and you don't know exactly where you're at and you call on your cell phone, you're going to get to the Washington County Sheriff's Office. Meanwhile, time is ticking away. Your loved one is in peril. Now, when that dispatcher at the Washington County Sheriff's Office finally figures out where you're at, they're going to transfer that call to the Marietta Police Department. Now they have to regurgitate it all again. I am in 100% favor of a centralized 911 system. I spearheaded the 911 levy when it went to the citizens of Washington County. Spearheaded that. It is imperative right now that we move under one umbrella for all agencies. It's imperative. What you saw, and the reason why this funding happened was because, you had your surcharge on your cell phone or on your landlines, and then you had a surcharge on your cell phones. Well, when the cell phones started to come, what happened? Your funding went away. And we were capped in Washington County at $144,000. That's what we were capped at. Senate Bill 51 just recently passed. And what that is a surcharge on your cell phones, a higher surcharge. Quarterly, that funding's to come in. We've not yet seen that funding yet come in yet. They haven't seen the total of that. I can tell you right now that if the projections are right, that fund, along with your 911 levy, can fund a 911 centralized system. Right now, it's already set up at the Washington County Sheriff's Office. We've got several answering points. Be an easy transfer. I know the commissioners are right now in the process of right now looking for a 911 director. The bottom line is simply this. I am for a 911 system. And I, as your sheriff, I'm looking at it from a revenue standpoint for me. Because if the Senate Bill 51's funding comes in, that'll free up 6 of my dispatchers that I can now turn into first responders. Because they'll be funded by the Senate Bill 51's funding. But also the safety of our citizens. I hear too often of the transfer calls. And I truly believe that if this funding comes in the way we're anticipating, Marietta and Belbury will come on board. And I will, as my opponent said, will be encouraging them to do that.
Yeah, I just had a question for both of you. Where you guys stand on side by side on the back roads?
Okay. Side-by-sides, there's currently a law in place that's been in place that says that local authority has the right to create an ordinance and or it's an ordinance or resolution. Local authority. That means that your township trustees currently can set that resolution. The job of the sheriff is to inspect each one of those vehicles that makes them safe on the road. I am 100% for it. 100%. Right now they're doing it. They're out there doing it right now. Right? There's no reason why. Now we got to be careful because the law states that it is under their jurisdiction, the local authority. So that would be township trustees, which they have jurisdiction under the township roads. I talked to Sheriff Lutz of Muskingum County and talked to him about the law and what they do in Muskingum County. He went to testify in Columbus, and this is nothing against no township trustees or anything like that. But for the enforcement side, it was hard for them because you'd have one township here that says they created a resolution. This township here did not create the resolution, but this township over here did. And everybody's zipping through the township that said no. So it created an issue. In the State Buckeye Sheriff Association, it basically states that they would like to see where a county commissioner could give a resolution that covers the whole county. And that way it brings everybody into play. I am 100% for it. I've already got ideas in my mind on how to create that inspection process based off the ORC.
I agree 100%. 4x4s, that's not something that I'm going to hold up as the sheriff. I'm 100% in agreement as well. You know, farmers got to farm. You know, people got to have some recreation. It's the common sense thing to do. It's not a political move by any stretch of the imagination. It's just common sense. So I would be a proponent for side-by-sides on township roads and county roads.
I think for time. Oh, one more.
Mine's just a lighter.
We'll let you ask the last question.
That's not becoming an older driver. I don't need this. That's not becoming an older driver. If safety demands for both candidates, will you call a level 3?
Snow emergencies, that's a consideration for about 50% of the population. The other 50% doesn't. The business owners don't want level 3s because it shuts down their business. But it becomes a safety issue. It becomes a safety issue. The sheriff has the obligation to issue a level 3. It's just that simple.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for the change. Yeah.
We have one last question.
This is for Mr. Warden. For you being in the Sheriff's Department for 37 years, why has the union endorsed your opponent other than you? I mean, explain that why.
Okay. It was quite shocking for me when I first learned out how it happened. So right now, the Teamsters Union supports my opponent, but it was not done by the employees of the Washington County Sheriff's Office. That vote was done by 7 individuals, trustees. 1 individual works at the Washington County Sheriff's Office. 6 individuals don't even live in Washington County. 6 don't even live in Washington County. I can tell you right now that I've spoke to employees down at the Washington County Sheriff's Office who support me 110%, but they're afraid. They're afraid because of the pressure they're getting from inner officers. I'm just simply to tell you right now that as your sheriff, I would never, ever accept the endorsement of a union that I'm going to be negotiating against, not only for the accountability of my employees, but also for the financial side of the steward of your taxpayers' money. I just simply wouldn't do it. I believe it's a conflict. I believe it's a conflict. Now, that vote that went out, I've received phone calls from other Teamsters within the city, outside the city. A union boss comes down from Zanesville and supports my opponent. Opens up town halls. Opens them up. It's scary. It's uncharted waters. Again, I want to tell you right now, I have Teamsters that's reached out to me and says, we never had a voice. It was done by 1 individual, the Washington County Sheriff's Office. And that 1 individual was an individual who was on the old task force and was removed because of managerial reasons done by the sheriff. Again, I want to say one more time, I believe it's a conflict.
I don't think it's a conflict, like it's a statement. Classified employees and non-classified employees in the state of Ohio. Classified employees are limited on what they can do, what they can say, who they can solicit for. They're limited. Non-classified employees does not have a limitation. So you have to get the endorsement from the union that represents those deputies. That's how you get that endorsement. But if you go on social media and look, you're going to see the 90%. You're going to see it.
So this is for both of you. I think this is the last question. So based on what we're hearing, there could be some division within the department. So if you are elected sheriff, what practical steps will you take to bring stability back?
You know, the quote of 90% is, I believe, is misleading. It's misleading. I was on my way home the other night, and I was told I don't look at the videos, that I've not worked a criminal case in 8 years. I was driving home on State Route 550, seen a vehicle in a driveway of a $70,000 theft that we had. I turned around, ran the vehicle, walked up, and the owner of the property had an individual at gunpoint. Wasn't able to call. I found it. Once I found it, the individual who was being held at gunpoint told me that he was never more happy to see a law enforcement officer in his life. But what I did was I called detectives and I called deputies to the scene, and we worked. We worked just like we do all the time. When I am elected sheriff, all this vortex that's being caused by some disgruntled employees because administration, this, that, and the other, that'll disappear. I've been through several elections. Never been at the helm of one. But we will all come together. There will be nobody terminated. There will be nothing like that. Remember what I told you when I first started this. What can I do better? What can we do better to better serve the citizens of Washington County? And that will be pushed down through the ranks. There'll be transparency and there'll be accountability.
I think it's a statement. I really do. I've been in law enforcement for 40 years. You know, it's not, there's an old saying, actions speak louder than words. The actions that I've done in 40 years of law enforcement have demonstrated the leadership capabilities that I have. the attributes that I have. That's why you're seeing all those deputies supporting me, because they want that new leadership. They want change. They want the ability to have a voice in what they do, not communication from top down. They want some bottom-up communication too. They want to be empowered doing their jobs. They want to have a say. That's leadership. That is taught in every leadership school from here to California. Communication, consistency in leadership. That's something that has been lacking for many, many years. That's why deputies are leaving employment. They're not leaving law enforcement. They're leaving their bosses, going to other areas. They're abandoning ship because of leadership. It is imperative that the leadership that you have as the Chief Law Enforcement Officer County have those qualities, have demonstrated that. That's how you measure the success of an organization, is by the 90%. Can you imagine for a second having that kind of support as a leader of businesses, how much production you can have? It's unprecedented. The sheriff's office wants change, and they want me to be that change.
Alrighty, unfortunately that's all we have time for with questions. I'm sure if you have any other questions, you can catch one of the candidates. But I'd like to thank you both for being here with us today, as well